Bonjour les amis, bienvenue à Tours. I found us a really nice little spot to start this live stroll. Un square, a public garden. It is known as the Square Sourdillon. It's the name of a gentleman, Sourdillon, and it is a public garden open every day, I believe, until 8 p.m. tonight. This building in front of us is a former hôtel particulier or private mansion that was built in the late 19th century for a very important man in town, a local judge. The city of Tours eventually purchased the property, and in the late 19th century, early 20th, it became a very well-known school in town. It's called the Institut de Touraine, the Institute of the Touraine. It's very well known not just in France but also around the world, because this is a place where you can come and learn how to speak French as a non-French speaker. So you've probably heard of the Institut de Touraine. You may have heard as well that Tours is quite renowned for having, they say, the purest French, the purest form of the French language in France with barely any accent. I don't know if that's still true, but it is true that a lot of schools in town, like the Institut de Touraine, welcome many, many students from around the world. So I'm just going to get closer to this beautiful building. So of course it was a lot larger when it was un hôtel particulier, a private mansion in the late 19th century. It was L-shaped, I believe. There were stables, there was a park, but quite a bit of it is left. And you can see that this site definitely was built to impress, with a double staircase. And so inside those rooms, behind those windows, I have a friendly pooch who's coming to greet me. Check it out. He just came to say hi. Bonjour les amis, if you just joined us. We are in Tours, in the beautiful Loire Valley in the Touraine, and I am introducing you to a local park, le Square Sourdillon, and what used to be a former hôtel particulier or private residence, private mansion, and is now a school, a language school, where you can come and learn French. Now, needless to say, when I chose Tours as my residence, you may have heard I just purchased a property here, a condo, I should say, and closed this week. I took that into account because I am also a French language instructor, not just a virtual tour guide. So it's not entirely impossible I'll do more language teaching in the next few years here. This is the perfect city because of its historical background to do some French immersion programs in. There is so much to discover, so many stories to unwrap that I think it's going to be great fun. So I have a fun little walk planned for you today. As always, if you've been around for a while now, I've been doing those virtual tours for about a year. We will be spending some time in the past, but also some time in the present. Bonjour à tous, bienvenue, welcome. Look at those beautiful hortensia, hydrangeas. Aren't these pretty? And something smells really good, but I don't know what it is. I can't tell. So we're going to leave our little Square Sourdillon and start strolling in the historical heart of Tours. So if you come here, this is the name of the square again, this public garden. That used to be a private residence for an affluent gentleman in town. I hope everybody's doing great. You're starting your weekend, some of you. I know I have quite a few members of the Friends with Véro club here. Look at the sun reflecting on this beautiful facade. I just love the Loire Valley because of those clear, beautiful facades made with that tuffeau stone, and then the gray rooftops made of slate. I think the contrast is really pretty and elegant. I just turned, for those of you following, I just turned on the Rue de la Grandière. Now, Monsieur de la Grandière was a local guy. He was born in Tours, and in fact, I believe he died in Tours as well. He was, for a while, he was a magistrate, but he became a mayor in Tours, and he was remembered, he was the last mayor the city had before the French Revolution. And he's remembered as a good mayor who did a lot of good things for the city and the people in the city. You probably remember that part of the reasons the French Revolution happened in 1789 was that the people were hungry, and he made sure that the people in Tours had some wheat, something to eat. So he did a lot of good things. Here is a side view of the building we just left with my buddy here. Hello, ça va? He's having fun, he has a friend here. And this is the site of the Institut de Touraine. This whole building here on the left is the Institut de Touraine. So it's a pretty big school, and it's private. It's a private school. For at some point in time, it was linked to the university here in Tours. Tours is a big university city. In case you don't know that, we have about 40,000 students. And here's the name, Institut d'études françaises de Touraine. And I know that among the people who follow me, among my club members, I do have some former students of the Institut de Touraine. We've talked about it before. I'm going to cross the street without getting run over. Look at this beautiful door. I see questions about my French classes. You can go to my neglected website called FrenchGirlInSeattle.com, and you will see a section about my French classes. So that's where you should go for more information. And these are French conversation classes, not regular traditional classes. So talking about the beautiful architecture in Tours with those tuffeau facades, look at this building. We are on a square called, it's named after le 14 juillet, July 14th, the French national holiday. These trees are quite interesting. They are mulberry trees. We call them mûriers in French, M-U-R-I-E-R-S. And you probably know that this is favorite food for silkworms. And you see a lot of them in Tours. A story that is not that well known about Tours is that Lyon is not actually the capital of the silk industry in France. It has become the capital of the silk industry and did. But Tours was the first city where that industry started when a king named Louis XI made it happen here. And of course, many people made a lot of money out of that. Look at this beautiful little street that goes around the block, the Rue Claude Vignon. I cannot go down that alley because of the cell signal. When I don't go down a small alley, it's because I've tested the cell signal and I know I'm going to drop you if I go there. But when I can't go there, I do share photos often with my club members afterwards when I share replays for the strolls, as you know. So you will see a photo or two of it. So look at these mûriers, these mulberry trees. And this is history in action here. Because for several centuries, the city made a lot of money making and selling silk. We have a car that's going super fast. There we go. I'm going to take you to this other square here, which is quite lovely. I hope the sound is okay. I didn't think to ask. I usually do. My apologies. But I'm sure you would have told me if something was wrong. So we are on la Place du 14 juillet. And you see quite a few interesting things here. There's a statue of a gentleman who was once a mayor here, a city official. And then we have the administrative offices of that school, the Institut de Touraine. and the back here of that beautiful building we just saw from the garden. So you see, it's still a massive piece of property. We're going to talk about the gentleman you see perched way up high on the top of that dome. He's looking at us and blessing us with his right hand. And his name is Martin, Martin of Tours, or as he is known worldwide, Saint Martin. He stands on the top of the local basilica, and we need to talk about him a little bit as we go through this neighborhood. Bonjour, if you just joined us, welcome. If you missed the beginning, you can watch the replay later. I'm taking you on a stroll through my new city where I've lived for almost 2 months now, the city of Tours. There might be a few cell coverage issues because we're going through some very old streets, but I will not drop you, hopefully, and we will be good. I'm going to stop here for a nice view. Look at the view up the street. On the right-hand side, you still see Saint Martin, or Martin of Tours, standing on the top of the basilica, the newer basilica. And then across from us is the beautiful Tour Charlemagne, named after Charlemagne, the Holy Roman Emperor. I have taken you by that tower, but more on the other side of the tower. This time we're approaching it from the southern side. The name of the street is Rue Descartes, named after the famous French philosopher. And that street, or this street, like other streets in this section of town, like the Basilica on the right-hand side, was built in the course of the 19th century. So it's not the oldest part, the oldest street in town. But this big tower ahead of us was indeed part of a massive basilica that dominated this area for several centuries. In fact, for 13 centuries. And a lot of these neighborhoods on the left-hand side were buildings belonging to the canons who worked at that basilica. I don't know if work is the right word. There's a cloister on the left-hand side behind those facades over there. That is private now because it's surrounded by housing. But look at these beautiful facades. Some of them date back to the 18th century. Do you see how elegant they are? Some of them are much older, especially in the side streets. We've had some interesting weather patterns this week. We've had rain, we've had thunderstorms. We've had just a little bit of everything. I see you like iron balconies. I'm going to show you number 7, Rue Descartes, because it's a beautiful home. So we are in a neighborhood known as Les Halles. Les Halles, Halles. This is the name of the covered food market. Many French cities have those. Tours has a fabulous covered food market, and in fact, if you follow this street here that curves to the right, you would reach Les Halles. This is a very coveted neighborhood for real estate purposes. If you're house hunting, a lot of people like to live here because you're very close to shopping, you're close to the market. It's also extremely peaceful, you can tell. The streets are lovely, lots of history and beautiful architecture. Oh yeah, I know, once I mentioned the story of Saint Martin de Tours, Saint Martin, people remember, they remember seeing the name everywhere, even in their own countries. I remember going to Saint Martinville in Louisiana. So here is, my friends, what I call the newer basilica. This is the basilica that was erected at the end of the 19th century by local architect Victor Laloux. I've mentioned his name several times already. I'm sorry, I told you there might be a few cell signal issues, but I'll go fast through them so I don't lose you. So no worries. And they will disappear on the replay, hopefully. So here is the Tour Charlemagne. the Charlemagne Tower, built in the 11th century and then built and built and rebuilt, went through a lot of hardship. But it's still standing. But you can see that the side facing us right here looks newer. That's because after a lot of hardship, this poor tower one day collapsed completely in the 1920s. And the city planned to completely destroy it, but locals saved it. And it's been restored since, and it's become a landmark in the city. And the reason it should still be here is because La Tour Charlemagne, the way it's called Charlemagne because Charlemagne's fourth wife died here, and he was heartbroken. She was buried under the tower, supposedly. That's why they called it Tour Charlemagne. But you can see the difference between the sides that were still standing when it collapsed in the 30s. And then look at the middle. This is newer, can you see? But interestingly, the column in the center is an original from the 11th century. This one, I'm going to get closer. So we've been here before. We have this tower, and then we have that tower, the clock tower. And this gives you an idea of the massive size of the basilica that started as a chapel to honor Saint Martin after he died. It was a church, a chapel, then it grew into a basilica. It was so big that that tower over there would have been on the front facade. This tower, the Tower Charlemagne, would have been the north transept. And right here on this street, which was built in the 19th century, la Rue De Alle, would have been one of the naves. There were 5, I believe, 5 or 6. I mean, it was just a massive building. And so to remember this building, what the city of Tours has done is that they have marked here, all along the street, in different color, the places, so we can kind of picture where the naves were and how long the basilica was, because it went all the way over there, very close to what we know as Les Halles, the covered market today. So picture the size of this place. I'm waiting for these people to go away over there so I can show you a representation of the basilica. So Tours, because of Saint Martin, after his death, he died in the 4th century. From the 5th century on until the French Revolution, Tours became a major pilgrimage site, one of the largest pilgrimage sites in all of Christendom, in fact. And it was also located on the path to Santiago de Compostela, which helped. So picture this neighborhood, which would have looked very different, of course, without this basilica that was added in the 19th century to replace the old one. But picture this neighborhood with pilgrims and a lot of the religious men who were around the basilica. So everybody's reading the sign very carefully, so I'm going to try and wait for a few seconds so I can show you that sign. I can't just kick them out. La Rue De Alle, by the way, if you come to Tours, my friends, is a lovely street to go shopping. It starts at the main street, la Rue Nationale, which crosses the city from north to south, the one where the tram is. And then it comes here all the way to Les Halles, the market. And on both sides, you'll have a lot of shopping, and good shopping, not chains, more independent stores and stores that have been here sometimes for a very, very long time. Currently, the tower Tour Charlemagne is closed, and that's a real shame because I would really like to get up the 3 floors all the way to the top, where apparently the view on the area is quite incredible. And here is the old column that is original, in fact. Isn't that incredible to think it's been here since the 11th century? You can see other sections. So this is the part that collapsed, and this is the part that they redid. All right, well, let's see if I can show you this. So here's a picture of the basilica that's not dated. but you can really see, this is the part, the clock tower I showed you that's close to Les Halles, so we would have to invert it to see where we are now. And this is the Charlemagne Tower that was part of the North Transept. I don't remember how many chapels there were. There were so many chapels. Like I said, 5 or 6 naves. I mean, the place was just massive. And so it was torn down. It fell in a bad state of disrepair, of course, in the 18th century with the French Revolution. You know what happened to a lot of religious sites then. And then they decided in 1802, 1803 to take it down completely. But the tower was saved. The Charlemagne Tower was saved by locals. They used it for other things. Then it collapsed, and then they fixed it up. So that's all that's left today. But if you come to this section of Tours, which is known as the Martinopole, because it's all centered around Saint Martin and the story of Saint Martin, you'll have to visit the Basilica, go below and see the crypt where Saint Martin is buried. And then, of course, if you can, go up the Charlemagne Tower that's right here to enjoy glorious views of Tours and the Touraine, the Loire River, and the other river that borders Tours. It's known as the Cher River, C-H-E-R. All right. So I am walking along the Rue De Alle. You can still see those markings on the pavement. They're everywhere. I think a lot of the markings represents former pillars or columns in the Basilica. Look at that, it continues. So they had to kind of blend 3 different streets to create this one, La Rue des Halles. And in the early 19th century, after the French Revolution, there was a lot of anti-clerical feelings. That's why they took it down. They didn't want the Basilica to survive, basically. This, my friends, we've been here a few times. This is probably my favorite square in Tours. But a local friend told me that had I come here 4 or 5 years ago, 5 or 6 years ago, I might not have enjoyed it so much. Do you see Saint Martin? He's back on us, looking south. Just a few years ago, they brought the statue down to restore it. If you go to YouTube, you can find a video of the day they brought it back, fully restored, and brought it back up to the top of the Basilica. That's a pretty cool video. You see all the locals who came to see him up close and personal. They found some relics in his right arm when they renovated it or restored him, which is incredible too. So here we are, Place du Chateauneuf. This poor Place du Chateauneuf had was pretty much showing its age, and it benefited from major work in 2017. Picture a parking lot in the middle. There was actually a parking lot here in the middle. There were cars going up and down the street. It wasn't very pretty. The facades were a little gritty looking. Everything has been cleaned up. It didn't take that long. And now you have a few cafes alongside it. It's supposed to be inspired by Italy, so they planted some olive trees. You see them here. You have benches. At Christmas, there was like a small Christmas village here. When we first came here in December, you can find that replay on YouTube, which if you haven't subscribed to my channel, you should. Here's the back of La Tour Charlemagne. We saw it from the other side just a second ago. So locals love coming here to La Place du Chateauneuf. Very peaceful. And here ahead of us is La Rue Du Chateauneuf, street named, same name. That also went or underwent a major restoration. I've seen pictures. It's a lot better now. So I guess I moved to Tours at the right time. I get to enjoy the new and improved Chateauneuf neighborhood. I just can't get enough of this Tour Charlemagne, and I can't wait to go up it. You can really see the style when you look on this side, the northern side. Can you imagine going up those stairs? I know there's an elevator too, but I think I'll use the stairs. I just want to go and see what it feels like. And here's the clock tower, which used to be at the entrance of the Basilica I showed you on the picture. All right, so for those of you taking note, this is the Rue Du Chateauneuf, which was the name of this neighborhood, the second historic heart of Tours that developed because of Saint Martin, or thanks to Saint Martin, in the Middle Ages, after the original heart of the city, founded by the Romans, was created on the other side where I live over there by the cathedral. And I've shown you that section as well. La Rue du Chateauneuf has restaurants and bars and a few brasseries. Excellent Italian restaurant on the right-hand side. Apparently their pizza is to die for. It's called Chez Pia, I believe. And I like that the building has this old, can you see on the side here? It's very old, and I can't really, Boisseau was the name of the business, but I can't really make out what it was. So the pizza here is very, very good. Le timbre poste, isn't that a pretty name? The postage stamp. There's a cafe I like up there, a little farther up. The restaurant on the left here has seafood and oysters. You can get fresh oysters, shrimp or prawns, and other type of seafood with a glass of wine on the left. It's very nice. It's called les maquereaux, the mackerels. And so over there it continues, and so to get your bearings, the Halle, the food market, would be at the end of that street on the left. But today we're going to go in this direction. We are going to dive into medieval Tours here in this section. Look at this old sign that says Rue du Change. Le change, a reference to exchanging currency, exchanging money. And in this neighborhood, a lot of the pilgrims came with their local currencies from their countries, wherever they came from in Europe. And they had to change the currency into the local Tours currency called la livre tournois, the Tournois pound. So a lot of people along the street would have worked in that business, welcoming pilgrims, trading currency. Today it's more boutiques, restaurants, enjoyed by dogs. Lots of pretty medieval buildings here. Some of them dating back, blurry because we're in the medieval district, so I'll go faster. I hope it gets better for you. Thank you for letting me know. Welcome, welcome. Look at this beautiful home. They've used slate, not just on the rooftop, but also to decorate the facade. And what you'll see a lot in these buildings are the sculpted heads and characters on the sides. This is probably one of the oldest medieval homes in town, this one. And there are more down the street, which is known as the Rue de la Rotisserie, the Rotisserie Street. When we did the apéro stroll in Tours a few weeks ago, we walked up this street in this direction. And back to the present for a few seconds. Here is your typical tabac sign, your tobacconist. It's known as a carrot. And next to it is street art. It's a sun because the street is called Rue du Petit Soleil. Street of the Small Sun. And this artist, the street artist I really like, he's all over Tours and all over this area. His name is Mi Famosa, and he is based in Orleans, which is nearby, a beautiful city not too far from here. There's a restaurant over there. So it's now, let's see, 7:30 p.m., which is definitely apéro time on Saturday evening. So things are starting to ramp up and get busy. They will get, bonjour! They will get a lot busier later. This is one of the loudest parts of town because all the students come here and party at night. Look at this beautiful home. So late 15th, 16th century. And you see a lot of the sculptures have lost their heads. So you might think this happened during the French Revolution in 1789 and the years that followed, but in fact, it happened during the terrible religious wars that rocked France for about 30 years on and off in the late 16th century. The Protestants at some point in time took over Tours, and while they occupied the city, they destroyed a lot of churches and abbeys, and they beheaded a lot of the statues before they got kicked out, and then they were slaughtered and thrown in the Loire. So a lot of violence during those religious wars on both sides, I must say. Look at this beautiful one. And they keep going. I'll step back so you can see. Do you see? It's all alongside the house. So some of them still have their faces, but not all. They were supposed to ward off evil spirits, some of them, I know that. And now it's an ice cream shop. The past meets the present. And here we are on the busiest part of town, especially on a Saturday night when the weather is halfway decent, and it is. It is the famous Place Plumereau, la Place Plum, as locals call it. We've been here several times. So I like coming here because it's really the most popular square in town for locals and tourists alike. And if you come to Tours, you will no doubt come here. This is the street we just came from, la Rue Du Chateauneuf. Look at how that house is really kind of leaning here. Now, interestingly, this big home on the left we just looked at is entirely covered in slate. We have some happy girls singing. And slate was a status symbol. Slate was a status symbol. If you had the money to cover up the whole facade in slate, then you had money. And in fact, the gentleman who owned this house at one point in time was part of the ones involved in the currency exchange business. I'm not sure what the cow is promoting. Maybe a birthday. They are clearly students. So Place Plum, la Place Plumereau is surrounded by a variety of homes. It's been transformed so many times over the course of its history that it's not really homogeneous. You have the late 15th, 16th century homes on this side, but I'm going to show you that on the other side here, it's more 18th century, at least some of them. And the reason for that is because originally it was a market square and it was a completely different shape, and there were a lot more homes around it in the Middle Ages. And so over time, they just worked on it and they destroyed a lot of homes around it, which is why some homes were later rebuilt. In fact, the ones on that side are more from the 19th century, especially this beauty here. This is my favorite home there. And it's from the 19th century. Look how pretty it is. So why do people come here, La Place Plum? To have a drink. I was here last night. You probably saw the photos I posted on social media, Facebook and Instagram, from Au Vieux Mûrier, which is one of the oldest cafes across from me over there. They serve apéro, so you have your apéritif time. Les Trois Rois, the Three Kings, is a good place for cocktails. It's also a cafe. And I'm just going to walk around it so you can enjoy the street vibes here. That's what we like to do, isn't it? Notice the waiters are still wearing their face masks. Clients are allowed to not wear them unless they go inside to the restroom or sit inside the restaurant. Then you have to have a face mask. Friendly locals. Au temps des rois, in the time of kings. Here's my favorite home, the one I was telling you about. So in 2014, you'll be happy to know that La Place Plumereau, was actually voted the best apéro place in France, the best place, the most fun square to have an apéro or apéritif in France. So they are quite proud of that here. I just can't get over that. Look at that. So what's traditional to order for apéro these days, especially if you're going to turn it into an apéro dînatoire, which is an apéro that turns into dinner, you won't have dinner afterwards, is une planche, P-L-A-N-C-H-E. Une planche is a board. Or tapas, like here, you see they have tapas on this board. So planche will come with either tapas style food, or it will come very often with charcuterie. Oh, here's your cow again. Coucou.
On se connaît, on s'est vu déjà?
Non.
Non,
Non, mais
tout à l'heure à l'autre bout de la place.
oui, on était là-bas. Vous avez, c'est bien, vous êtes observatrice.
Ouais,
Très très bien. Vous fêtez quoi?
Je suis la première de la classe.
Vous venez. Ah, vous fêtez un anniversaire?
C'est
Un mariage. Un mariage. Oh là. Beaucoup de bonheur. Bon courage. Bon courage. Okay. She is celebrating her upcoming wedding with her girlfriends. And I said, bon courage. Very friendly. She recognized me from the other side. That was fun. Here is the Vieux Murier, my favorite cafe here. There's a really cool waitress I like. She knows I'm new in town, so she always gives me tips and advice. She's super sweet. And here's the beautiful house over there with the slate that we looked at. We were talking about the planche. The planche come with charcuterie, or they come with cheese, or they come with both, and they're called mixed in that case. You can see here at Le Vieux Murier, they call it les planchettes, small planche. And it's made with charcuterie, homemade, and cheese for 14 euros. And it serves about, I'd say, one and a half people. You may want to each order one if you are big eaters. Le Vieux Murier doesn't serve dinner, so it's only apéro. They serve lunch, but not dinner. So apéro is big business here, you can tell. Hein? Comptez? Ah. People are talking to me. They're very intrigued by the camera. This is not Paris. In Paris, they're used to seeing cameras a lot. Happy hour. You have all your teas. So voila, my friends, this is your Place Plum, the heart of everything that's fun. There are other sections. In all these side streets, you would find bars that run very late at night, discos. I know, the architecture is to die for, and now that we're so much closer to my favorite building, look at it now. Look at the iron railing, the details. Here's another, I had missed this one. Place Plumereau. Plumereau, plume means feather or quill in French. So Mi Famosa did the street artist did, it's a quill. So I like that he plays on words a lot. He does that with most of his work, which is really fun. I have taken you down this way before. You can see that on my 2 previous tours, actually. So I will go in this direction, and then we will wrap up closer to the Rue Nationale. I'm going to show you a street that is even busier than the square. It's called la Rue du Commerce. Bachelorette party, that's the word I was looking for. I spaced out. You got it, that's the one. Maybe I should lift this up so you can see better because I'm short. So Tours is incredible because you have so many different architectural styles. In fact, in this we are in Le Vieux Tours here. I forgot to mention that, the old part of town, though it's not the oldest as we've discussed before. But You have houses here ranging from the 12th century all the way to the 19th century. And you can really see in the side streets, it's just fascinating. And you can see all these different styles. And this square was saved by the city of Tours and the help of the French government in the early 60s. In fact, it was one of the first cities in France that was able to do that, and it inspired, during the De Gaulle presidency, it inspired De Gaulle's Minister of Cultural Affairs, André Malraux, to pass some groundbreaking legislation so that France would be able to preserve not just landmarks and buildings, but entire neighborhoods, entire towns. And after Tours was able to save la Place Plum, then the Malraux laws were passed, and towns like Sarlat in the Périgord, or neighborhoods, entire neighborhoods like the Marais and Paris were saved. But this whole started here. Lots of young people. This is Student Central here. And they will keep going until the wee hours. La Cabane. You can see the crowd is pretty young. This is not my favorite part of town in the evenings. I have found other sections where the crowd is not a little bit in my age group, more in my age group. Yes, you're right. It's very noisy if you live here. And I looked at several buildings, a couple blocks around here actually, and one of them was on the street on the right here. And I was advised against it by a friend I have locally who said, don't buy anything in or around or above La Place Plum, because you will hear noise until 2 or 3 in the morning and later. I looked at a building, in fact, right in here, and ended up not making an offer because of that. But during the day, it's quite lovely, isn't it? Look at this beautiful street. We've walked up here. I think I took club members up the street. La Rue Littré, L-I-T-T-R-E. So you can see that this is a city who knows how to party, a city who knows how to live outside on terrace. The condo I bought is in the back of Les Halles neighborhood where we were earlier, the elegant neighborhood I showed you that was more peaceful. And I live on a much more peaceful street, but I'll be 5 or 6 minutes away from the Halles, from the covered market, and about less than 10 from the Place Plumereau. So I think I'll get the best of both worlds there, and that was the plan. I can't wait to move in at the beginning of August. I'll be wrapping up in the next 5 minutes. Bonjour, monsieur.
Bonjour.
Somebody just blew you a kiss. I do believe. Here we come to a section where you have a lot more exotic food. Well, I figured I was too old by now to move to an area like La Place Plum. I figured the noise would get to me. It sure got to me in Paris the last 8 months, so I didn't want to risk that again. I'm taking you back to the heart of town, the lifeline of Tours, which is the Rue Nationale. We've been on it several times now. If you are new and watching this as a replay, I've done a few other tours in Tours that you will find on this YouTube channel under replays or under the new playlist we created called the Loire Valley. There's a beautiful tour we did right before Christmas with the Christmas lights on, so I highly recommend this one. Look at the traffic. And you don't see a lot of traffic in the historic heart of town because the streets are for pedestrians only. But it's like any other city. It can get a little busy. I'll switch around to say hello. Since I'm not wearing a face mask anymore, my face mask is here in case I have to go indoors somewhere. I want to say thank you for joining me today. I'm not going to wrap up right away, but I'll take you a little bit further up. But if you're new here, welcome. If this is your first time following a stroll with Véro, I've been doing these for about a year now. And I love sharing the present and the past. The Hôtel Gouin, 15th century marvel. This one's quite beautiful. It belongs to the state, so you can't really go inside. And it's really hard to film in my experience. I'll have to wait till the gates are open, but look at this beautiful architecture. That's the name. Gouin was a powerful family in this area. In fact, we mentioned the Gouin family when I took club members on a stroll in my old arrondissement in the 17th in Paris. We went on a private stroll in Les Épinettes and I showed them some social housing that Monsieur Gouin, a successful banker, had created for his employees. And he was from the same family, I believe. So restaurants here are more, they're not quite fast food, but you know, you can tell. There's a lot more to show you, obviously, but today was a little bit different from what we've done so far, even though we always seem to end up at Place Plum because it's such an important place in Tours. Now remember that on Thursday, July 1st, the Tour de France will be leaving from Tours to Châteauneuf, stage 6. They started today, they're in Brittany. It started with a big mess and an accident because a woman on the side of the road hit one of the racers with a sign, and then so many of them fell down. It happens a lot in the Tour de France. It's quite dangerous for the racers. So if you ever watch it, make sure to not be too close to the road because it's a big hazard to everyone. But they will be in Tours arriving on Tuesday. Thank you for the kind comments about joining the club. That's lovely, thank you. It's nice to feel appreciated. So the racers will arrive on Tuesday. I will probably share some content with club members on Wednesday because of, you know, they're organizing a lot of fun activities in town before the tour starts on Thursday. And then on Thursday, I don't think I'll be able to film really well the departure line because of social distancing. They're limiting the number of people who will be allowed in that section. But I will try and pick up the vibes. I want to show you what it means to the French and how crowded it's going to be. And of course, I want to do this safely because I don't feel comfortable being in huge crowds. So we will make the best of it. And I hope you enjoy the reporting I'll be doing next week on Facebook and on YouTube. So here we are on the famous Rue Nationale, the big street they carved out in the 18th century that had different names over time. It crosses Tours from north to south. South is there, north is there. In fact, if I stand in the middle of it, you can see it go up in the distance, which is really cool. And the tracks in the middle are for the beautiful tram that's coming behind me. I can hear it. And the Loire is right there. Very close. And this is where the tour will be departing on Thursday, by the way. Yeah, I can see the tram coming. There you go. Okay, so I think I'll turn around so you can see the tram. It's going to come behind me at some point. There we go. I want to say goodbye and thank you for following me. I know you're all very busy and it's the middle of the day for most of you, so you probably have other things to do. Thank you for coming. Here is the tram. I'll be riding it tomorrow, actually. Look. Zzz. So efficient. So if you are new here, I am a tour guide. And as a tour guide, I have a virtual tip jar on YouTube, and I will put that information in the video notes once it's uploaded. Any contribution is gratefully accepted. They help cover the cost of running these tours. But the best thing to do, in my opinion, is to join the club, the Friends with Véro club, because if you do, then you'll be uncovering a lot of great content, not only in English but also in French to practice your French each month. So look me up on Patreon at patreon.com/FrenchGirlInSeattle. You will not regret it. It's one of the most generous Patreon programs out there. Thank you. Thank you for being here. Oh, it's coming on the other side. I'll do this. I'm just in love with that tram, can you tell? I'm kind of fascinated with it. There it comes. Ah, voila. You'll see it again that way. Thank you so much. I see all the kind comments from club members. You guys are wonderful. Without you, there wouldn't be a business. Without you, I would have lost my job, period. So I'm very grateful for all your support, for you being here. And I will be seeing you soon. I'm going to switch back. I will be seeing you very soon for the Tour de France next week, and I'll make some announcements about when and where to watch. All right, friends, here we go. The tram and the 2 new hotels. They've just opened up, overlooking the Loire. I'm going to watch the tram go by, and then I'll wrap up. All right, à bientôt, friends. Thank you for joining me in tour today. It was great fun.